Welcome, Greek U Nation, to episode number 577 of the Fraternity Foodie Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Mike Ayalon, CEO of Greek University. I'm a speaker and an author. Our sixth book just came out. It's called I'm So Beautiful, It's Ridiculous, Unleashing and Promoting Strength, Self-Worth, and Real Sisterhood. So go and pick up that book on Amazon or Barnes & Noble today. We call these episodes the Fraternity Foodie Podcast because there is nothing like great food to bring college students together. Fun fact, I love speaking at fraternity and sorority conventions. Today, I'm coming to you live from the Sigma Alpha Epsilon Fraternity Convention in Atlanta, Georgia. Meeting the students in person and working with college students to help them make their college campus safer is truly the honor of a lifetime. And it is what I am committed to for the rest of my time here on Earth. And I have another person that is joining us on the show today that has so much great information for college students. I wanted to make sure I got him on the show as quickly as we could. His name is Frank Buchholz. He is a retired financial advisor. He has 40 years of experience in helping individuals and families to achieve their financial security. He's known for his approachable investing and practical advice. So Frank combines his deep expertise with real life stories to demystify investing. And that is something that college students are incredibly concerned about. They want to make sure that they can own a home one day and start, taking advantage of this time commitment that we can get all kinds of money and returns, but all of that takes time. So the earlier you start with your plan, the better that becomes. Now, Frank is sharing his insights in his transformative guide. It's called The Investor's Golden Playbook. So I want everybody who's listening to go out and get The Investor's Golden Playbook. Welcome to the show, Frank.
Michael, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Of course. It is an honor to have you on the show. I know a lot of the college students that I talk to, a lot of the men here at the SAE convention, they're all about investing. I mean, the young people today, they really do want a brighter future. And so I think you're right in the right place at the right time. But I'm wondering, after 40 years of being a financial advisor, what inspired you to write the Investor's Golden Playbook for a wider audience, especially for young people who are really just starting out?
Well, it's interesting you should ask, Michael. The bottom line, of course, is in America, I don't think the average person has a clue how to invest their funds to get the maximum return, if you will.
Yeah.
And I don't think most people even take the concept seriously. To me, after your health and your family, money should be pretty darn important. So given the lack of knowledge, and the proof of that is the fact that half of Americans retire today with no money saved for retirement, to me is kind of a real perilous situation. So the first thing I did, of course, was to write the book because of lack of knowledge. And then, of course, when you retire, you want to have a sense of purpose, which gave me the sense of purpose to write the book. And then, of course, that led to the concept of giving back, meaning that I'm giving back to investors out there, giving them knowledge, which led to my fourth reason. That, of course, is charitable giving, meaning that I will ultimately give all the profits away from my book to charity. So I call it my double give back, helping Americans both in knowledge and also with charities that are doing really, really good work.
Yeah, I love that you're giving back in that way. That's exactly why I do what I do too, just to help some of the young person maybe avoid some of the pitfalls that I ran into as a young person. Giving back, I think, is beautiful, and then donating the profits from the book back to a nice organization. I mean, I can't think of a better legacy that you can possibly leave, Frank. I think that's incredible. But for many of our listeners, they're in college, and I think right now they're just feeling really overwhelmed by this idea of investing, because think about it, they're paying more than ever for their college tuition. Right now, interest rates are extremely high, so home ownership almost seems unobtainable. What do you think is the first mindset shift that college students need to make on this journey of investing?
Well, I talk about a prosperity mindset. And that, of course, is the fact that you need to kind of start thinking about it. I think that the problem, of course, when you're in college, you're focused on getting through college and getting past those final exams and the whole process, if you will. But I think if they start thinking about it earlier, the sooner the better, meaning that if you start putting money away, that money will grow for you over time. And to give you some example there, when I was working, we didn't have a 401k when I first started out working. Now, of course, when I started contributing my 401k when I was 34 years old, and I contributed to it every year. And I never sold anything in my account. I just kept buying and buying and buying and buying and buying. And of course, it went to the stock market. Like when I retired, my IRA was worth $8.5 million. And I started when I was 34. Now imagine if you started a 401k if you're 22 or 23 or 24, you could potentially have even more than that when you retire. So bottom line, of course, it's all about projecting and thinking about how you're going to ultimately retire with enough money to save to live a nice retirement.
Yeah, that is the power of compounding interest. That's what the college students need to understand. That's something that Frank and I don't have a ton of time left in compounding interest. But if you're a 20-year-old, that power of compounding interest, that means a lot of money over time. So now is really the best time to get started. And you've actually distilled your entire experience into 12 golden rules of investing. Which one of these golden rules do you think is most important for college students to understand early?
I think the bottom line, of course, is that you start early. In other words, the sooner you start, the better off you're going to be. And I really wrote the book with kind of the college students in mind to a degree. There's 70 million people in America today that have a 401k. I would say 69 million people don't have a clue where to invest those funds. So in my book, I try to give them a guide, what I did to do to really achieve a nice little nest egg, if you want, when I'm retired. Because imagine when they retire, if they're 20 years old right now and they retire when they're 70, that's 50 years from now, right? Can you imagine what's going to happen to inflation over the next 50 years? I mean, everything that costs, $20,000 a day is going to cost $100,000 by then easily. So they need to start with this concept of getting back to where the money is, and also doing some projections. In other words, if you're going to need $200,000 to live in retirement, how much money do you have to have saved to earn $200,000 a year if you're earning 5%? So, and of course that's you would literally need $400,000. So, how are you going to get to $400,000? So, it's definitely an issue, and they need to start doing it earlier rather than later.
Yeah. Well, you've been a financial advisor for 40 years. I'm sure you've seen a lot of mistakes that young investors make. I'm wondering, how can young people avoid some of these common mistakes?
Well, I think the bottom line, of course, is that one of the biggest mistakes they make, of course, is doing nothing, and not even being aware. It's in America, we have this live for today attitude, and of course, tomorrow comes around pretty quickly, as you and I can attest to that, of course, with all due respect.
Yes.
So, bottom line, of course, is that they need to start thinking about this earlier on and doing something. It's all about taking some initiative and taking the courage and kind of jumping in with both feet, if you will. Yeah. It's all about just getting started. And I think the sooner you start, the better off you're going to be. And of course, it also gets you in that mindset as well.
Mm-hmm. Your book includes something called the attributes of the affluent. I'm wondering, is there one attribute that college students should start building now to set themselves up for long-term financial success?
Good question. I think there's kind of a tie here. There's actually two attributes, and I think they're both equally important.
Okay.
The first one, of course, would be initiative.
Yeah.
You've got to have some initiative going for you, an initiative to take the steps, start forward, if you will. So when you ultimately land a job out there, you need to, find out if they have a 401k. And if they have a 401k, try to contribute to that. And again, the sooner the better. The other thing, of course, is to have some confidence. In other words, if you put your money in a 401k in a simple money market, earning, whatever, 2 or 3%, whatever, you're never going to grow your money to anything. You need to have some confidence in the fact that history will repeat itself, and the best returns as far as any investment over the last 50 years, 20 years, 10 years, whatever, it's been in the stock market. Yes, you will have ups and downs. Yes, you're going to have sleepless nights at times, but the average return in the stock market has been 10%. So you can't get that anywhere else. So you got to have confidence in the fact that history will repeat itself, and you'll ultimately get where you want to be.
That's great advice. I like that a lot. I'm embarrassed to say that there were some of my fraternity brothers in college that really abused credit cards, and I saw them fall into all kinds of traps. I mean, they even used to prey on college students by offering some of these credit cards and giving away these various tchotchkes, I'll say, in order to sign up for a credit card, but they don't realize what a responsibility that is. So I'm wondering, what's your take on using credit cards in college, and how can students use them wisely without falling into a debt trap?
Yeah, for sure. No question. Of course, it's easy to get there because, again, out of sight, out of mind. You just keep flashing a piece of plastic, and buying all this stuff or paying for everything. Bottom line is that the student needs to be aware, pretty much, where their balance is at all times. And given the fact that everything's online these days, in my house, we can have a couple of mouse clicks and there's my investment account sum total, there's my credit card balance, there's my bank statement, but the student needs to be aware of where they are in terms of their debt. And once they have that knowledge, once they know that number, they need to ask themselves, can I in fact pay this when it comes due?
Yeah.
And if you can't pay it when it comes due, you need to start making some changes on how you spend your money. And maybe it's kind of a hard reality, but the bottom line is if you don't pay your credit cards, it's going to hurt your credit. And when you go to buy something on credit, you're going to be paying either a higher rate of interest or they're going to deny you credit, one of the two, because your credit card debt and your ability to pay on time is going to haunt you the rest of your life. So you got to make sure you do pay the credit cards on time. And if you can't do it, make some changes today.
Yeah. And I think people need to budget too. I think not enough people are really figuring out their budget. How much money do I have coming in? How much money is going out? Can I cover the whole thing? If you can't cover the whole thing on your credit card, you should not be making that purchase. You should absolutely not be making that purchase. It's just irresponsible to do it. And the students right now, they're juggling tuition, high cost of tuition. I mean, I don't even have to tell you, my daughter goes to Rice University in Houston, Texas. This is a six-figure commitment on an annual basis. We're talking about a lot of money. So students are juggling tuition, part-time jobs, maybe student loans. How should they start thinking about saving or investing, even if it feels like they only have a few dollars to invest?
Yeah. Well, I did an example. I figured, okay, what if a student saves $5 a week?
Right.
So, that should be, doable, if you will. And let's say that they invest those funds into the ticker symbol SPY, which of course is the exchange traded fund, which mirrors the return on the Standard & Poor's 500, which of course is a gauge of the stock market. You can actually buy that index, if you will, by buying that ticker symbol SPY. That is averaged about 10% go through thick and thin over time. And even if you did this just 1 year, you'd have $260 saved at the end of the year. And if you let that money grow over time, over 35 years, that money will grow to about $8,320. Now you can extrapolate that, given any number of ways you want to look at it, but that's just 1 year at $260. Now, if you did that every year through thick and thin, and there's a link in my book about how to, it'll calculate it for you. But imagine you can really grow even just $5 a week. That can grow into a fairly decent number, if you will. So again, it's all about starting. The sooner you start, the better. And you can start with a small number. In my book, I illustrate how you take 2 cups of coffee from Starbucks, take that off your platter, take the $10 a day and invest that. Now you have $300 a year, $300 a month. Start with $5,000. Over 35 years, I grew to $1,300,000. So now you're talking about some real do-re-mi, if you will, just by foregoing 2 cups of coffee a day.
Those are some great examples, and that's a really practical thing that any college student can really do, is just pass on those Starbucks coffee and instead invest that money each day. Another good example too, I know when I graduated college, I felt like, well, I've graduated college, I put in all this work, I got my degree, so now somehow I'm owed a really nice car. I need to have a brand new white Mustang that I can show all of my friends my status symbol. But what would have been much smarter is to go out and find a used vehicle that had some miles on it that I could pay for in cash instead of getting locked into a big monthly payment. And then all of that money could have been invested. So I made a big mistake. And I got to tell you, as I get older, I realized something very powerful, which is that nobody really cares what kind of car you drive. Nobody really cares. As long as it gets you from point A to point B, that's all that matters. And that money could be invested, and you can really set aside a really nice nest egg for you in retirement if you think that way.
No question, for sure.
You ended the book with something called "Gratitude is Golden." I'm wondering, why did you choose to conclude with that message, and how do you see gratitude tying into financial wellness?
Yeah, so that's an interesting question. Of course, because what's gratitude got to do with investing, if you will. So my thought process was to give the reader every bit of knowledge I could about success in life, not just money, if you will. And I firmly believe, without getting a little bit off the track here, and maybe a little bit too much, weirdness, but I firmly believe that 2 secrets in life are, of course, gratitude and charitable giving. That's the reason, of course, I'm doing the charitable giving already with two of my former clients, and also, of course, gratitude. I firmly believe with all my soul, if you will, that the more grateful you are, the more things you will ultimately have to be grateful for. So the book is all about prosperity. And I also believe that you're never really prosperous until you start giving back to society. And it doesn't necessarily have to be do, re, mi, and money. It's all about, giving back and helping others. And I think there's a powerful message here, because giving back is good for the person that's giving from the standpoint of even being healthy. You get that warm and fuzzy in your heart. I gave one of my former clients $15,000 last year, because she has a foundation account here locally in Orange County, California. And she has an account, investment account that's in 9 figures. So north of $100 million. And when I gave it to her, she goes, this brings tears to my eyes. And I thought, holy Toledo. And of course, when she said that, I go, well, that gave me almost tears in my eyes as well, because here's a woman that, is extremely well off, if you will. And that $15,000 is kind of, but of course it's for children. And, and she pointed out, of course, that in Huntington Beach, there are students living and going to Huntington Beach High School that are homeless. I mean, I thought to myself, oh my God, here we are in Huntington Beach, a reasonably affluent community. We have students that are homeless. And of course, that's who she's helping. So I thought, oh my God, that's unbelievable. So bottom line, of course, is that, it's all about, being prosperous. And then, of course, the ability to give back and to have gratitude. And of course, I'm convinced that it's all one big formula. It's kind of like baking a cake. You can put all these ingredients in there. Well, to me, it's starting early and also being grateful and giving back. So it's all kind of intertwined. And I'm convinced with all my soul that if a person's grateful, it will help them immensely over time.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. At a time when college students are experiencing a lot of stress and anxiety and mental health issues, I would just say that if you just take the time to be grateful for everything that you have every morning, just wake up and start with a blank piece of paper and just write down all the things that you're grateful for, all the things that are going really well in your life. Sometimes we don't look at that stuff. We tend to overlook the fact that we have a roof over our head and we have a bathroom and we have food in the refrigerator, and all of these small things. But be grateful for family and friends and all the things, the blessings that you've been given. And I think if you start out each day with that message, I just think it'll be a much more productive day for you to set it up.
No question.
And I love also your message of giving back and charitable giving and giving the profits of this book back to a charity. I'm wondering, how can students start building this habit of generosity, even if they don't have much to give?
Well, bottom line, of course, is that, you can certainly give back through other ways than just giving money, if you will. And of course, that, of course, would involve time and maybe a little sweat and toil, if you will. But I mean, the local food banks, we have one in Orange County, and of course, again, Orange County is relatively affluent, but I mean, there are food banks probably in pretty much every community across America today, given the high price of food and so on and so forth. They need help just moving boxes of food and moving, things around, if you will. So if you give back, I think that's hugely helpful by just giving your time and your muscle, if you will. I think the bottom line is that people need to kind of stick their toe in the water. And once they get a taste of the gratitude that they're receiving from the other end of it, they're going to like that feeling. And of course, I'm convinced that's actually healthy for you as well. It actually is. It's one of those. There's some doctor that defined it and how it works and blah blah blah. But bottom line is it's healthy. So get your toe in the water, donate some time, and I think people will find it very rewarding.
Yeah, I agree. And to all the fraternity and sorority students that are listening right now, we do expect that you're going to do community service and give back. All of us have gone to, incredible universities. Not everybody gets the chance to go to college and get a college degree.
That's correct.
So I think it's part of our responsibility to help others in our community and put a hand out and lift them up with us. That is part of the responsibility that we have as humans, is to uplift others. And I think that's what our purpose is on this planet. So I want you to think about giving back, and I think it's our responsibility to do so in our communities. Every single community, whether you're in Huntington Beach, in Orange County, or wherever you are in this
Wherever.
great country, it doesn't matter. There's always people that are in need. And I think by working at, let's say, a soup kitchen, you don't need any money to work at a soup kitchen. Just volunteer your
Exactly.
time and go
Yeah.
and feed the people who are hungry in your community. And I will tell you that you will walk away a better person because of that experience, that you are helping the people in your community to get by.
Yeah, it's all about attitude of helping. You
Yeah,
know, we have kind of all this political strife in the country right now, but
sure.
adopt the attitude of helping others. And if
Mm,
we all did that, my God, this country would just explode with everything great.
yeah.
So
I, I'm
that's my message, and I'm sticking with it.
I think it's a great message. I think social media, unfortunately, turns everything on the inside. We're all about showing about what we have, that we're
Oh
driving a
yeah,
BMW, that we're on vacation in Tahiti, and we're doing all of these things, and we're showing all of that externally. But on the inside, a lot of times, these guys who I see posting those pictures, I'm like, wait a minute, you're going through a divorce with your wife right now. Your family life is a wreck, and you're posting all of these positive messages that aren't even real.
yeah.
I think just helping other people, I think that is just much more productive, and that's what I want to be known for, is for helping others. The BMW, nobody really cares about. That's the
Yeah,
God's
broken
honest
motor
truth.
works.
Yeah, exactly. Nobody really cares. It's a depreciating asset anyway. I got news for you. It does
Oh
not
my God, yes, I know
appreciate
that
in
for a fact.
value. Yeah,
Yep.
it doesn't appreciate in value. That thing, the
No.
moment you drive that BMW off the lot, it
Oh
has
my
just
God.
lost a quarter of its value.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
The moment you drive off, like the moment you step into the street, you have lost the value. So, that's not an appreciating asset. So any financial advisor will tell you that it's not going up in value, I promise.
Nope, it ain't gonna go by. That's for darn sure. No
you know,
question.
yeah, I was wondering. I mean, your book is phenomenal. Again, it's called The Investor's Golden Playbook. I would highly advise any college student to go out and pick that up to help them on their investing journey. But are there other resources besides the book that you recommend for students who want to keep learning about personal finance?
No, absolutely, absolutely. So when I was writing the book, of course, I needed to go online and find, if you will, evidence of some of the ideas I was proposing, and I want to show actual, some facts, if you will, behind some of the concepts.
Mm,
And the two websites that I found were really, really very, very helpful, and also just for novice investors as well. One was called Nerd Wallet, NERD Wallet, Nerd Wallet, which is, of course, a great website in terms of finance, and they have a lot of good articles on there. And the other one, of course, is Morningstar, which talks about, specific investments and how, maybe what mutual funds, what they have, and what returns are, and individual stocks and returns on stocks, and so on and so forth. But it gives you a lot of information about, what's going on in the world of investing. Those two websites I found extremely helpful. And then, of course, I also receive daily online the copy of the Wall Street Journal, which I love. Their articles are extremely well written. I don't find myself in disagreement with them. I don't think hardly ever. They're very professionally written, and a lot of the articles are entertaining, which I find helpful as well. Just to kind of give me some entertainment in my life. But those three, of course, would be my favorite by far and away.
Well, those are some really great resources. I'm going to make sure to share that with the college students. Where can our listeners find the Investor's Golden Playbook and continue learning from all of this wisdom?
Yeah, so I do have a website. The website, of course, is Investors Golden Playbook. And then, of course, there's a little link on there. You can click on there and you get some emails and some more additional information. Um, Amazon, of course, has the book online. Thank you, Amazon. And you can actually read the introduction, see the table of contents in the first two chapters to see what you think of the book. The book does entail real life client experiences. And of course, I do mention my favorite client in chapter 1 by the name of Leo Arena, who was my favorite client by far and away. And he was quite a character, and he lived to be almost 103 years old. So quite an interesting, quite an interesting character, if you will. The book is also on Barnes and Noble. You can actually go into the bookstore and order it. It's probably not on the shelves, unfortunately, but you can certainly order it. And there's some other websites, including Apple and so on and so forth. But the easiest ones, of course, would be Barnes and Noble and of course Amazon.
I love it. What made Leo your favorite client?
He was just extremely knowledgeable and extremely gregarious, and he had such a history. I was working for Bank of America at the time, and he was the largest individual shareholder of the Bank of America stock.
Wow.
And, he came in, I met him in 1995, as I recall. I came into the office there, and I talked to him, and he was just full of energy and full of wit, and he was happy. And when I got done talking to him, one of the banking people there said, "You realize he's 95 years old?" And I thought to myself, he looks like he's 75. He had a full head of hair, very fun. I went to his 100th birthday party up in Palos Verdes, and he was walking around carrying a glass of wine, and he looked like he was like 80, like 85, if that. And he purchased his original shares of Bank of America from A.P. Giannini, who was the founder of Bank of America way back when he lived in San Jose. He was a dentist by trade. He always told me, "I never made any money being a dentist, Frank, but I made all my money, by investing." So, and of course, when he passed away, sadly, his account was my largest account of any investor that I had, and he made it all by investing in the stock market, which of course gave me great inspiration. And candidly, that's how I made my money. My house is my fourth largest asset. I have a deferred comp account, an IRA account, and a trust account that are worth way more than my house is. And most people, their house is their biggest asset when they retire. Well, not me, knock on wood. My other assets dwarf my value of my house, and we're not living in a shed, trust me. So, bottom line is the fact that I got inspiration from people like this, and I use that inspiration to further benefit my own self personally. Now, of course, I want to in turn show people what I did so they can learn from this and hopefully have a retirement like I have. We have, knock on wood, we have no money worries. Yeah. Well, when I'm 73 years old, I have no money worries. Guess what? That's hugely helpful for your health. So if I was all worried about stress and didn't have any money to save for retirement, I didn't want to think about it. It'd be terrible. Yeah. Terrible situation.
Well, they're talking, the latest articles, we're talking about Social Security running out, 9 years or so.
Oh, yes. I was reading the Wall Street Journal today.
You read it, right?
Yeah, Medicaid and Social Security, yeah.
Yeah, 9 years they say that we have left on that before that runs out of funds. So, that it's really problematic for young people. I think, when you and I were growing up, we just thought that Social Security would last forever and that would help us, but that's not really true today. I think young people today have to start thinking about a different avenue, because that is not going to be the nest egg that you're looking for. You really do have to start with investing. And I'm really proud of Frank to come and share all of his experiences with his clients, and then what he's done for himself, and then share that forward to other people, so that way they can hit all of their financial objectives and goals in life. So Frank, you've done a wonderful thing with this book. It's called The Investor's Golden Playbook. You can buy that on Amazon. Thank you so much for sharing all this great information.
Thank you, Mike. I appreciate your time. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. The pleasure was mine. And to all of our college students that love this interview with Frank, I want you to like it on social media, and I want you to share it with other college students that are also interested in investing and building a financial nest egg for themselves. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you on the next episode of the Fraternity Foodie Podcast. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.